The movie opens with shots of a thick green forest where a few workers are busy chopping down trees in the southern area. Everything goes smoothly until sunset. That's when one of the workers mysteriously vanishes. The site in charge tries to call his boss but gets no reply. Worried, he walks into the woods alone to investigate, a decision that costs him his life. Moments later, a monstrous creature emerges from the dark and kills him brutally. Then the camera moves to a nearby town where we meet Paul, the town's sheriff and our main character. He's sitting quietly on a park bench, lost in deep thought, his face showing quiet sorrow. Next, a man approaches Paul for help. Out of his 13 horses, one has gone missing. Paul and his partner Donnie decide to look into it. They figure the horse probably ran off because the gate was left open, so they don't take the case too seriously and wrap it up quickly. After work, Paul goes to pick up his son. His wife is living with her mother for now. That evening, as Paul cooks dinner, his little boy asks, "Dad, when will Mum come back?" Paul smiles weakly and says, "It'll take some time, son." As they're chatting, Paul suddenly feels a strange presence inside the house. He checks every room, but no one's there. He shrugs it off, tucks his son into bed, and goes to sleep himself. Next morning, Donnie drops by and spots odd animal tracks near Paul's house. Paul gets curious, and when they follow the trail, it leads straight into the forest. Inside the forest, the tracks become even stranger. Paul contacts the forest department to ask about any unusual sightings, but the officers say they've never seen or heard of such a creature. The footprints turn into a town mystery. Fear spreads everywhere, but no one can find any proof or explanation for what's happening. Later, Paul visits the church and talks to the priest, who says his dog went missing overnight, another case adding to the growing unease. Meanwhile, back at Paul's cabin, Donnie finds a picture of a small boy in one of Paul's drawers. He stares at it for a while. It's Paul's son, something Paul never mentioned before. Later that day, Paul stops by the grocery store. The shopkeeper asks about the strange creature people are whispering about. Before Paul can reply, another man cuts in, saying his grandfather once warned him. Something ancient and dangerous has always lived deep within that forest. The man warns that the creature could be dangerous, but Paul brushes it off. The man taunts him, saying, "What kind of cop are you if you can't even catch that thing?" His mocking words irritate Paul, who finally snaps, gives him a stern warning and walks away. Stepping outside, Paul runs into a hunter who tells him that something strange is going on. The forest, once full of deer, is now eerily silent. Not just deer, but almost every animal seems to have vanished. The uneasy news unsettles Paul, and he decides to visit his wife's house to pick up his son. When Paul meets his wife, she mentions that at the park, kids were talking about a demon monster, claiming the mysterious footprints belong to it. This makes Paul visibly nervous. Their talk also reveals that the couple separated about 6 months ago because of a serious issue. After their conversation, Paul takes his son with him. On the way back, something horrifying crosses their path. A tall, shadowy creature suddenly appears on the road and darts into the woods. Paul stops the car and steps out carefully, telling his son to stay inside where it's safe. Paul slowly follows the trail into the forest and finds something shocking: the missing horse's collar lying on the ground. He starts to piece things together, yet the beast itself is nowhere to be seen. As Paul heads back to the car, his heart nearly stops. His son isn't inside. Panicked, he calls out again and again, but hears nothing. Then, in the distance, he spots movement near the trees. Rushing closer, he finds his son hiding inside an old stable. Relieved, he hugs him tightly and whispers, "Thank God you're safe." At the same time, Donnie visits a small local bar run by the hunter. Over a drink, the hunter begins sharing an eerie tale passed down from his grandmother, that spirits live deep within the forest. He recounts a horrifying incident where a boy who went missing was later found hanging from a tree 30 feet high, his body mutilated. No human could have done such a thing. The hunter concludes that the forest is cursed, haunted by a demon-like creature that feeds on both humans and animals. The hunter's story sends chills down Donnie's spine. The next day, Paul and his wife visit their son's school, where the principal expresses concern. She says their son often talks about his brother as if he's still alive, even though everyone knows the boy passed away long ago. It's the same brother whose picture Donnie had once found in Paul's drawer. The conversation turns heated between Paul's wife and the school principal, and they decide to leave. As Paul walks down a quiet path, he passes by his late son's grave and pauses for a moment, filled with grief. A short distance away, he notices Donnie watching him. Before they can speak, a strange rumbling fills the air. Looking up, they see countless birds fleeing across the sky, an eerie sight that sends chills down their spines. Instead of migrating south, the birds are flying in the wrong direction. It's as if something unnatural is driving them away. Donnie tells Paul everything the hunter said about the legends, the spirits, and the dead boy found hanging in the forest. But Paul refuses to believe it. He insists it must have been a murder case, not the work of any monster. That night, Donnie helps Paul's wife fix her car. As they talk, he shares how he became a police officer, and she opens up about her painful past. She says, "The day I went to my mother's house, Paul was home with our other son. He went to the pool and drowned. I couldn't forgive Paul after that. I felt he had failed as a father." Her voice trembles as she relives the tragedy. Later that night, Paul gets a call from the horse owner, his voice trembling with fear. Paul and Donnie rush to his house. The man explains that something, or someone, was banging on his door the night before, making sounds that didn't seem human at all. He begs them to help him find out what it was, but Paul again brushes it off, thinking it's just a prank by local kids. Suddenly, a loud thud echoes from the nearby shed. Paul, holding his flashlight, cautiously steps inside and freezes. The same monstrous creature he saw before is there, lurking in the shadows. Before he can react, it bolts out of sight again, disappearing into the darkness. The next morning, Paul and Donnie head back to the hunter's barn. There, they spot the creature's huge footprints once more. Paul collects them as evidence, determined to uncover what kind of animal could have left such marks, something he's never seen before. Later that day, Paul spends some time with his family. His son softly says, "I wish we could all live together again." Paul smiles faintly and replies, "Maybe one day, son. Just give it a little time." That night, while driving home, Paul notices a dead deer lying on the road. As he steps out to inspect, the creature suddenly lunges out of nowhere and knocks him to the ground. Panicking, Paul scrambles back into his car, slams the door, and speeds away, shaken but thankfully unhurt. The next day, he meets Donnie at a bar and recounts the previous night's terrifying events. At first, he admits, he thought the creature was just a myth, but surviving the attack proved otherwise. While there, a store clerk mocks them again, calling them coolies, only adding to their frustration. The following morning, 3 hunters enter the forest to hunt. Hidden in the shadows, the creature observes silently. When the moment comes, it attacks each hunter in turn, brutally and without mercy. Later, Paul drives through the forest, lost in thought about his son. Suddenly, he starts calling out in distress. From the shadows, a severely wounded hunter stumbles toward him, barely conscious. Paul helps the injured man and listens as the hunter recounts the horrifying events in the forest. Paul realizes that the woods have become perilous, filled with clever and ruthless creatures. At that moment, another hunter calls urgently, urging Paul to return to the forest immediately. Paul arrives to find the last 2 hunters' bodies hanging grotesquely from a tree, brutally murdered. Shaken, he orders everyone to evacuate and calls the forest department for help. As night falls, the temperature drops sharply. The town empties, streets silent, and an uneasy stillness takes hold. Later, Tony visits Paul's house. Paul shows him a report revealing that the same woodcutters from the beginning of the story have vanished. He suspects that chopping down the forest released the creatures trapped within. Shortly after, a store boy arrives, showing Paul a chilling video, a monstrous figure sprinting across the forest before vanishing into thin air. After everyone leaves, Paul hears his son's terrified scream. The creature has entered their home. Paul locks his son in the bathroom and frantically calls Donnie, who arrives quickly to help. Donnie tries to capture the creature, but fails. Realizing the entire town is in danger, Paul and Donnie escort the townspeople to the church. Outside, countless creatures gather, roaring menacingly, blocking any escape. Paul ushers everyone into the basement for safety, then, with Donnie, confronts the creatures. One creature wounds Donnie, but he fires back, hitting it in the shoulder. Just as it lunges to kill him, Paul arrives and shoots it down. After some time, the townspeople cautiously emerge, relieved. But Paul and Donnie notice something horrifying. The creature's wounds are closing on their own, regenerating rapidly. They realize this is no ordinary animal, it's a demonic entity possessed by an evil spirit, and there are many more like it. Fear spreads beyond the church as the creatures close in, threatening total annihilation of humans and animals alike. The film ends here.